Hello all, I am Meenakshi, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Applications from Government College of Engineering and Technology. In this video, we will see the concept of web client. A web client is a software that initiates communications with the web server. It sends HTTP request and processes the resulting HTTP response to display the web content. The most common type of web client is a web browser, also known as a user agent, designed to provide direct user access to the web. Early browser like Mozilla Firefox. Nowadays, we are using Google Chrome. This all for the web browsers. The primary function remain rendering HTML, which include text, links, and references to images. CSS and JavaScript function bringing web pages to life on your screen. The diagram showed a web browser of the what are the components in our web browsers. The key component of the web browsers. The web browser provides a user interface with several essential components to facilitate web navigations and interaction. Address bar. Type or view the uniform resource locator for each web pages, acting as its unique addresses. A main web page window, the central area where the content of the web page is displayed after it has been rendered by the browsers. Refresh button allow you to reload the current page, ensuring you see the most up-to-date version of its content. Stop button enable you to halt the loading of the web page, useful if your page is taking too long or load or in a unresponsive. Uniform resource locator. The URI existing that identify a resource on the web. There is two main types. First one is URL, uniform resource name, and URL, uniform resource locator. The URL identify a resource by a unique name without specifying its locations. It consists of a scheme name, a namespace identifier, and a namespace string. Here is the example for the URL. The URL, uniform resource locator, refer to a web address that uniquely identify a document over the internet. This document can be a web page, image, audio, video, or any other resources. Types of URL. We have the two types of URLs, uniform resource locator. First one is absolute URL and relative URL. A complete address of the resource, including the protocol, server, name, path, and file name, is called as a absolute URL. Here is the example for the absolute URL. The relative URL, a partial address omitting the protocol and server path used for internal links within the same website, is called as a relative URL. Here is the example for the relative URL. Used to link web pages on different websites. It's also called as a absolute URL, used to link web page within the same website. It's called a relative URL. Difficult to manage and change if server or directory name change. Easy to manage, remain the same even if server or directory name change. The last one is takes longer to access due to full path reservations. The relative yield faster to access as less reservation is needed. Web servers, the heart of web communications. The web server is a computer program that stores web content and deliver it to web client upon request. When a web browser sends a request for a web page, the server locates the request file and transfer it back to the client over the internet. Here the diagram explains the web communications between the client and server. The client machines running on the web browsers, the server machine running on the web server. The workflow of the web server. The first one is TCP connections. The server waits for connection request on specific TCP port. Upon receiving the request, it dedicates a substack to handle the connections. Next, HTTP request receptions. The substack establishes the TCP connection and receives the HTTP request from the client. Virtual host identification. The server examines the host header field to determine which virtual host should process the request. Resource mapping. The virtual host software maps the request URI to the specific resource on the server. Content delivery. If a file, it determines the MIME type and send an HTTP response with the file. If a program, it run the program and return it output. Logging and connection management. Information about the request and response is logged. The TCP connection is monitored for further request or closed after the timeout. Essential web server configuration and logging. The configuration parameters are IP addresses and TCP port. Define the network endpoint for the server connections. Substack and thread. Control the number of concurrent processes for handling requests and maximum active connections. Connections queues. Set the limit for pending TCP connection requests when a server is at maximum capacity. Keep alive timeout. Determine how long a TCP connection remain open after a request before closing if no new requests are received. Web server logging. Web log files automatically record server activities. They provide invaluable data for analysis, monitoring, and troubleshooting. Access log file contain detailed information about every HTTP request processed, including requested IP, date, time, requested resources, and status code. Message log file store debugging information, server error, and output from web applications. Logging configurations specify the log file directory, pattern information, file name, prefix, suffix, whether to resolve IP addresses to host names, and rotation settings for daily file management. Thank you.